Okay, so the last video I did the gas tank and the fuel pump and all that. Got the engine running. I also did a tune-up on the engine, so basically spark plugs, plugged wires, distributor cap and rotor. I did check the compression with the tester on all the cylinders, and they all seem to be fine. Initially when I started it up, I had like 4 gallons of gas in the gas tank, and that I guess wasn't enough. Once I put a few more gallons in and did the tune-up stuff, it's running way better now. Cylinder 2 I think may still have an issue with maybe the fuel injector or misfiring somehow, so I think that is still not getting full power, but overall the engine is actually running quite nicely, way better than it was when I first started it up. So things I have to do now are I'm in the middle of putting a new wheel bearing on, I should say bearings, on the rear driver's side. All the other 3 wheel bearings on the car seem to be just fine. I did a seafoam treatment in the gas tank and the crankcase. Let's see what else. I did a air filter, obviously. The brakes. Yeah, so the rear driver's side wheel cylinder was leaking a little bit, so I replaced that and then bled the whole system. The brake pedal seems to be a lot more firm now, and so after I do all that, I will be installing a lunchbox locker in the differential that I have. So then I can put that back into the rear end and then put the axles and all that together, and hopefully then it'll be actually running and driving, and then we'll see where we're at once that's all done and I can test drive it more thoroughly. Okay, so I have the hub entirely disassembled. All the old bearings are out of it. It's cleaned, ready for new bearings. So here's all the parts from the old bearings. The outer was pretty destroyed. The carrier for all the rollers was completely missing. And here are the new parts. This is the slightly smaller one. That's the outer. There's the race, and then the actual bearing itself. Separate parts, at least they were at O'Reilly. And I didn't know that, so here is the inner bearing that I have to go back tomorrow and get a race for. Here is the inner axle seal that goes inside the end of the spindle. And so, let's see, I also got had to get a ton of brake cleaner. That is, whenever I run out, I usually just get a case because it's really handy for just about everything. So that cleaned up the hub real nice. And then I have some high temp wheel bearing grease, the red stuff, to repack the hub and all the bearings. That 16-ounce can should be enough to just do one hub completely. So the rear passenger seems totally fine. Bearing is good and everything. Spins super nice, but the driver's side rear is the one that's taken apart that I am replacing. Alright, here is the hub reinstalled. On this side I did not replace the bearings because everything seemed to be totally fine. So I took everything apart, inspected the bearings, totally got all of the old grease out completely, brake cleaned everything, repacked the bearings with new grease, and put everything back in. So now all the bearings are in and it's almost done. Alright, last step of installing the hub is to tighten that lock washer with this handy dandy tool and set the preload. So let's see, I'm supposed to torque this nut down to 43 foot-pounds. I do not have a torque wrench, so I'm just going to estimate there. I'm going to back it off a little bit, or actually first make sure that this spins, then you back it off. Right. Then you go to finger tight. So basically just kind of put my hand around that socket tool, snug it up to finger tight. Alright, I'm going to pay attention to these and get one of these to line up. So looks like this one's already lined up perfectly. They say you're supposed to, basically after finger tightening it, you're supposed to take it to the next one that lines up. But since that one already lined up perfectly, I'm going to take it to the next one after that that lines up, which should be this one. So I'm going to get those two to line up, and then I will call it good and put the screws in. And I'll tighten this with a screwdriver after this, and that's it. Next obviously is to install the axles and everything, but I do not have the differential in yet, so I can't do that yet. I am waiting on my Lockrite lunchbox style locker to install into the diff, and then I can throw in the axles, and then the rear end will be completely done.